Okay, so to continue the report about the monastic conference, then I gave a presentation about how we keep Vinaya here at the Abbey, and really emphasized the thing that to look at the circumstances in which each precept was set up, what was the story behind it, why did the Buddha set it up, and especially what mental affliction was each precept designed to hit at. And by understanding that, then to decide or to figure out how to keep each precept in the 21st century. You know, because some of them we can't keep literally. Some of them, there are provisions whereby we don't break them. But then still there might be, you know, certain mental states the Buddha is getting at, and so it might be good to kind of adapt the precept in a different way to work with that mental state in our culture. So I gave that presentation, and then Reverend Seikai from the Order of Buddhist Contemplatives gave a presentation talking about the relationship between their tradition and their Vinaya, because they are a Japanese Zen tradition, and Japanese Zen traditionally they do not have monastics. They have priests. They take the 16 bodhisattva vows. That is the rendition of the bodhisattva vows they have in Japan. And most Japanese priests marry, and in fact many of the temples are hereditary, passed down from father to son. But their order was started by a British woman who trained in Japan. She may have become a bhikshuni, they're not very clear on it. But in any case, after establishing themselves at Shasta Abbey in 1969, as a, you know, they had couples living there and training, then she decided that the order should be celibate. And so everybody in that tradition is now celibate, but they don't have the Vinaya ordination that the rest of us have. So it was an interesting discussion how they practice, and you know, what does celibacy mean in their tradition. You know, in our tradition, if you break the celibacy vow, you are out and there's no chance to reordain ever again in that lifetime. In their tradition, you know, there are certain things that possibly could happen where a person might be readmitted. Yeah, so it was quite an interesting discussion to see how we handle all those kinds of things that came up. We also had an interesting discussion about the translation of some terms and how that leads us to think, because very often in the Tibetan tradition, things are translated as vows. Okay, so first of all, we would have the 3 sets of vows, the Pratimoksha, Bodhisattva, and Tantric vows. And then sometimes within each of those, there are vows, the way it's presently being translated. And Bhikkhu Bodhi was commenting that at least in terms of the Pratimoksha ordination, our monastic ordination, vow is not a correct translation, either for the ordination itself or for the different precepts that we keep. Because vow has a very Christian thing of you vow to never, ever, ever do it, and if you break your vow, it's, you know, you're going to hell and it's irreparable, and it has that kind of connotation. And that leads to people feeling quite guilty. Whereas the word sikkhapada actually means like a factor of training, you know, something stronger than guideline, you know, a factor that you train your mind in. I've thought about it, and I think precept is still a good word for it, because a precept is a principle that guides your moral behavior. So I think that works okay. But, you know, they're definitely not vows, because with our precepts, of course, there's some, if you transgress fully, you're out, you're no longer a monastic. But then there's other ones, that you repair, and they're very much trainings. In other words, when we take them, we are not expected to keep them perfectly. And see, this is what's confusing about if you translate them as vows, then people say, I got to keep it perfectly, and I can't, I feel guilty, and blah, blah, blah. If you translate it as guidelines, then people are a little sloppy. So you need a word that somehow indicates, your training in it, and it's important to do your best keeping it, but, at least with the minor ones, if you break them, you train and you repair and you rehabilitate and you confess and you improve yourself, okay? So how to, make translations that fit those kind of meanings. And then especially if in the Tibetan tradition, the word dompa is often used for the 3 sets of vows. But then, using vow as the title for a level of ordination, that also is confusing. So another word that could be used is restraint. I want to take a poll here. How does it, like if we say we could say the 3 restraints, or the 3 sets of restraints, how does that? The word dompa can also mean commitment, but I've found that many people don't like the word commitment. What else can it mean?
Restraints brings to mind.
Pardon?
Restraints brings to mind being tied to a bed.
Right. Well, actually, this is one of the translations of dompa. It means to tie or to bind. But it does bring that connotation. I think of an inmate in restraints. So that's that part. But Venerable Jigme was saying, well, I am trying to restrain my body, speech, and mind. Yeah. So is there a way, because also I've noticed that the 3 in Succession Guru Yoga, they're translated as the 3 lapa, and lapa means training, as in 3 higher trainings. So is there a way to put training and restraint together so that it doesn't sound like you're tied up, but,
Is there a noun for refraining?
Refraining?
It's like refrain, because it actually, there's a mental decision that you're making. That has more of a, well, that's why I don't know.
Refrain.
Training commitments.
Training commitments. But the thing is, Siksapata refers only to the pratimoksha vows. Pratimoksha, I shouldn't see, I said vow, just pratimoksha. I don't know with the bodhisattva, if they're called Siksapata. I don't think so. Yeah? So, training commitments would work for pratimoksha, but the Tibetans have the 3 somethings, the 3 trainings in restraint. How does that sound?
The 3 trainings and restraints? Or
in restraint. The 3 trainings in restraint. The 3... restraining commitments? I don't know. Anyway, think about it while you're eating lunch. And, and we'll see what we can come up with, because I'd like to come up with some kind of terminology that more accurately expresses the meaning here, so that people don't develop wrong conception of what we're trying to do when we keep precepts.